So I'm not sure the video got cut. So while rates are going down, there's more available cash flow. So in theory, someone will bid higher for the building because they can still make the returns they're looking for. As now interest rates are starting to rise, the opposite effect is taking place. There's other things that are going on within the marketplace that I'll get to later. But for right now, it's the simple form of why rates go up today, real estate goes down. But it shouldn't really be this way. It should be real estate is worth a certain amount of money. And, oh, I got a better financing deal, a worse financing deal. No one leases a car based on or buys a car because they got better rates on the financing. You decide you're buying a car's worth this amount of money, and it happens to be you got better financing, so you saved money. This world works the opposite. It came to so much of an extreme that it goes the opposite way. The starting point is the financing. But look at it now if you're the seller. I own a building. I could sell it. It's worth $1 million. Along comes a buyer and says, nah, it's only worth $950 because I can't get the same return. Interest rates went up. So what ends up happening is, I say, if you're not paying $1 million, I'm not going to sell. Because I don't have anything fundamentally today wrong with my property. I'm still collecting rents. I still have cash flow. And what am I going to do with the money? Why should I sell it at a discount to my mind? So the sellers today are not motivated to sell. They have no reason to sell. And if you're looking at this over here, if you look at this line, the value of investment can rise and it's hedged on the downside. So the real estate could rise. I bought the building for $1 million. I own the building now. It could go up and be worth, like we discussed, $1,050,000, $1,001,000, $1,002,000. Real estate could rise. But if God forbid it's not rising and there's a problem, at least I'm hedged on the downside. While I'm carrying it through, I can afford to carry it through. I'm getting a cash flow that's coming into me on a monthly basis. So maybe the real estate's not worth as much. So take the example of a stock. If you have a stock that you're working with, that you're buying, if you have to sell a stock on the wrong day, you lost money. Only if you sold it that day. But if I own Microsoft and Microsoft goes down today, but I don't sell it, I didn't really lose money. Same concept over here, but I don't make money from owning that Microsoft stock while it's down. Over here, my income stayed the same. Now, if the real fear of the real estate market is when rents start to drop. That's the real fear. So what's going on in the market today, which no one could figure out, is what's really happening in the overall economy today. Is the overall economy really getting better? Job market is better. And if the job market is better, then people are getting better raises. If they are, they can afford more money. So they start, people that are in worse neighborhoods, in worse buildings, can now afford to upgrade to a better building. And the owners of those buildings can start charging more rent. And there's more rent increasing. If that's the case, then it's even better to be an owner today because rents are going up. The biggest risk, what happens when rents go down? Is the economy really bad? Just like now, it's just that people just have a motivation. They think it's going great. No one knows the answer to the question yet. And these are things that we'll find out over the next few months. You're going to find out. One thing is scary, and it's for sure, is that in the high end, in New York City, that's where they're having a problem with the rents. There's too many properties came to market. So many people try to build higher end buildings because if I have a building, I'm building it. Like, what's the incremental difference to make my kitchen high end versus regular? But the difference in rent from a regular apartment to a high end apartment was significant. So landlords built higher end apartments. And because that's such a glut on the market, that now the rents are dropping on the high end. Now, the reality is, as I was saying before, you talk about comps. It's real estate. It's only because there's so many people training the real estate field, and there's so many different industries that are working on the real estate front. Then I don't know, this thing is stopped. That's what is it? Let's go. It says not. What is it?
You have logged in from another device.
It says recording at the bottom. Well, so what we're seeing is that there's so much information that you have. There's so many comps of information that you have. So because there's different parts of the business that there's a whole segment called leasing brokers that rent apartment renters. All they do for business is they rent apartments out and they get a commission for every apartment that they rent. They make a lot of money. So everything is tracked. How many units are on the market right now, what the rents are, and all different programs are out there. So the one thing that they're noticing, before they lower the rents, they give what's called concessions. So they say, if you sign a 1-year lease today, we're going to give you 1 month's free rent. So you're signing a 12-month lease, but you're not going to pay the first month. So it's a 13-month lease, and you start paying in a month from now. So that's what they do. And they've been showing for the last few months that those increases in some buildings are really going up. They're giving you 3 or 4 months free rent. Because the landlord's basically saying, instead of keeping it vacant for a few months while I try to find someone, if you agree now to move in, you can move in and pay the next 4 months you won't pay, and then you start for 12 months. So if you really analyze it, such a case like that, if you're in there for 16 months and you're only paying for 12, that means the rent is not the rent you're showing, it's 25% less. So while you're advertising that rent is $5,000 for that apartment, the high-end apartment, it's only $3,700 for that apartment. So similar to the airlines, if you go now and look for tickets and you see Frontier Airlines for $80 and you see American Airlines for a flight for $100, you'd say, I'll save $20. But American Airlines is not charging you for your seat. So that if you just to get onto if you want the right seat, you're in for $100 there and $80. They don't have to show those fees. That's what regulation is starting to come in the airlines, that they have to compare apples to apples. And this way, they don't want American Airlines complaining that they're really lying. We lost this flight because you're saying your ticket's $180. It's not really true. Your ticket's $105. And if you have to pay $25 for the seat, whatever the price point is, you have to go. Similar thing, same thing works here. You want to get a comp that works compared one to the next. So the concessioning is starting to come in. And the question really comes out is what happens with the rent if it goes down. So very good, these buildings are in trouble. But what happens then to the next neighborhood? Is that next neighborhood getting $2,000 rents because the better neighborhood is getting $5,000 and the person couldn't afford it? But if the best neighborhoods go down to $3,000, then someone could afford $1,000 more, and they couldn't afford $3,000 more, but could they afford $1,000 more? So these are a lot of the unknowns that are going on in different markets. What happens from A buildings to B buildings to C buildings, the better, worse, what happens when rents change. But the general concept of cash flowing is if I have a building and I'm getting rent on my building, I'm in a great situation. And at least I know I'm hedged. If the values could change, but I have my rents coming in consistently. And this is also why, and the same thing at cash flowing, why certain people don't buy 4-unit buildings, 6-unit buildings, 8-unit buildings. If you have one tenant, you lose. That's it. You can't afford the payment that month. You have a 40-unit building, a couple of tenants leave, you can still afford the payments. You have a 40-unit building, it's one roof. If you have a bunch of houses you own, every one tenant has to pay for the roof. It's the same cost of the roof. Same $20, $30, $10, $15,000 per roof. All these expenses are hedged. You have a cash flowing deal that's hedged. That's where you bring it into. The last thing is the investor owner is the decision maker. This is the thing about real estate versus other businesses, investing in stocks. You make the decisions on these buildings. So there's no like big board that you have to deal with. It's you. You make a decision how you want to run things, how you want to take care of things. And that's why people are buying cash flowing properties. On next page, section 1, page 13. So we touched upon some of these things, but so we'll go a little bit faster. 1 to 4 units versus commercial multifamily from 50,000 feet up. Why do some real estate investors invest in private homes, and why do many prefer commercial multifamily? Why most prefer commercial multifamily is very simple. Like I said, 40 units, 40 tenants. It's the same headache to go through the process to buy the building. At least once I own it, I own a much bigger deal. Once I'm already doing all the work, let me make more money. Why some people buy private homes is because they buy private homes for a different reason. Depending on the neighborhoods, where most people, I'm assuming, that have taken this course live, if you rent it at your house, it will not cover the mortgage payments and the cost, and plus they're over a return if you bought it. And maybe if you rented your house today, and you could have a house and maybe there's a basement apartment you could rent, or just if you're living in a house, you probably can't rent it. You could rent it, maybe it'll cover the mortgage payment. But think about if you actually bought the house and you have to put down the cash you put down. You're not getting a return. You're barely covering the expenses. So therefore, the people buy private homes for a different reason. So in some markets, it works the other way around. Some markets, you can buy homes for very, very cheap, and the rent covers. So you could ask, why don't the tenants buy it? Because there are plenty of people that can't afford even a minimal down payment, number one. And number two, that just the headache of ownership and the whole thing scares them, a lifetime commitment, and getting credit, they're getting a mortgage, so it goes. But why do people buy those homes? Because they buy the homes with a different calculation when they buy it. They're counting on the appreciation of the home values. So there are people that focus on neighborhoods. Now, if you look where you live, right, as people get older, I'm not talking about as the older people get older, as the kids get older and they start getting married and they want to live there where they grew up, slowly but surely the housing gets filled. It's a good neighborhood. So if you're comfortable to live there, then others are comfortable to live there. And as it gets filled, people have to move out. They expand the borders. So that some people who buy, they have long horizons. They don't need returns on their money. They don't need it. Going back, there's something called cash-on-cash return and an IRR. And we'll go through it later. Cash-on-cash means I put money into this deal today. I need to get money out from the deal today. That's my cash on cash return. IRR means what is my return over the lifetime of the investment? So we said in the beginning that someone buys a building and throws off 10% a year, okay? And then plus when he sells it, there's a profit. He puts that profit together with what he took a year. That's the overall, what was his return? His IRR, his internal rate of return. What, by the way, all these things that we spent a lot of money building on the app. If you look at a lot of the calculators, now you'll understand that one of the calculators calculates IRR. That will calculate for you the example of you have a building throwing off how much money, and then at the end you sell it for what price, and you put the profits together with what you took each year. For how many years you kept it, it will calculate for you. You'll be able to see black and white. You can play with it and see the difference of the cash on cash versus IRR, how it works. Most real sophisticated investors only care about the IRR. They care, what am I going to make during the life of my investment? What is my return going to be? They don't need the cash flow. To the opposite effect is someone who's in retirement, has $1 million in retirement. What they care about is the cash flow. They only buy a deal that's throwing off. If they need $80,000 a year to live, they're going to buy a deal that has an 88% cash on cash return. The IRR is not as important to them. They don't care that in 20 years from now or in 10 years from now, and you look back, you have to make 12%, but you're only making 4 today. That doesn't help them. They need that return. So the sophisticated investors are longer-term investors. When they invest at longer horizon, they have the luxury of saying, you know something, look at the demographics. Look what people are moving. Right now, these houses cost $150,000 to buy. Barely covers the expenses. Or just covers the expenses, no return. So they say, at least, let me buy these houses. I'll put down the $30, $40, $50,000 that I needed per house as a down payment. I don't need a return on my money, as long as every month I'm not coming out of pocket to carry the house. And they buy a house without coming out of pocket. Or value add. They put away money in reserve. If they think it's going to take 5 years for this real estate area to really go up in value, so they're going to lose every year $3,000. So 5 times 3 is $15,000. They put $15,000 in an escrow account to cover the losses every month. They put down a down payment, and then they run the investment. They're buying it because they're counting on it 5 years from now. They're counting on they'll sell this building. They'll sell each house for $250,000, and it comes out that the profits they made on the sale work out to the return, the IRR return that they need. Those are people why they're buying 1 to 4 family homes. That's the reason they're buying it. The second point is, like I said before, by one family, all your property expenses are sunk into one tenant. You have a problem, one tenant is out, you're in trouble. You have a 40-unit building, a 50-unit apartment building, at least it's divvied up. You're not tied to one tenant. One tenant doesn't pay, you have to go to court, then they fight them. You're really in trouble. The management can be a hassle and spread over several neighborhoods. If you own 40 homes versus a 40-unit apartment building, just going to visit every home, even if they're right next to each other, let alone if it's in 2 towns next to each other, it takes time. And every time there's a headache, there's an issue. It's 40 times a whole different building. When you have one building, one super can help you maintain that building. Section 1, page 14. The main commercial property types. We will focus on income-producing properties. Another word for cash flow. There's income in there, it's cash flow. Those are the 2 interchangeable lingos. Apartment buildings, which is 5+ units. And actually, to tell you, if you want to sum this up, these bullets before I go into them, the reason why these are the most common bullets in real estate, bullet points, is because these are the 4 things that every single person relates to and deals with on a daily basis. You live, you can relate to the fact you go into a home. You all go shopping, so you can relate to shopping centers and retail stores. You all you work, you have office buildings. And everything you need, industrial, it's made with everything you're working with today was made with industrial buildings. There are buildings to store and warehousing, and all that's the 4 parts. Everything else after that becomes specialty use. So apartment buildings is number 1. Office buildings is number 2. Shopping centers number 3. Industrials properties number 4. And mixed use is any of these 4 that are mixed together. So the most typical mixed use property is you have certain neighborhoods that have retail downstairs and apartments upstairs. That's a mixed use property. There are 2 uses for the property. There's a retail use and a multifamily and a residential use in the same building. Hotels, nursing homes. These people call it real estate. I invest in nursing homes, but really nursing homes is really a business. It's not like you could just tomorrow morning walk in and run a nursing home. There's a lot. Forget about the regulation. There's a lot of. It's a business part of it. A hotel. It's a business. You have to know how many chambermaids do you need for every amount of rooms you have, and what do you do when you scale it up and scale it down, and someone at the front desk and a reservation. It's a business. The other four parts are not businesses per se, it's real estate. Once you put the tenant in, you have a basic way in property management, and you move on. It's logical, you can understand every part of the process. So I just want to comment now, giving this course differently now than in previous years. There hasn't been any real threat to the apartment buildings. There's no technology threat to the apartment building. The other things have been technology threats. Came into the other parts. Office buildings have been technology threats because by having companies like WeWork and having the ability in general technology, where in general you can have, if you look at the interesting part of this course, those of you that are actually doing the calling part of the course, you're operating off of an app. This is the first time purely, I'm not even providing a computer. I'm not even recommending if you need a computer, you can work off an app off a phone. So if you think about the amount of space that you need to work, where you need to work, it could be total mobile. So someone working in any company also has the same thing. I don't know the exact numbers, but if you speak to a leasing broker, an office leasing broker will tell you that approximately, I think the number was 100 square feet, but I'm not sure. Let's say you had a building, you had 20, I'm looking for office space. And I call up a leasing broker, he goes, how much space do you need? I said, I have no idea. And he'd say, okay, how many people work in the office? I would say, 20. He would say, 20 times 100, you need 2,000 square feet. That's approximately what you would need, because they calculate between the dead space, the reception area, the kitchen area, whatever you need, it's roughly 100 square feet a person. You want a lot of luxury, let's say it's 150 square feet. That number has dropped drastically. A lot of it has to do with, if you walk into an office a few years ago, or walk into a law firm today so you get a better visual, but even stuff, walk into a law firm and go into one of the older partners' offices. There's a lot of filing cabinets, a lot of paperwork there, so they need bigger space to keep everything around. But if everything is digital today, everything is on computers today, the amount of actual workspace that a person needs is less. Your computer is very small. You need a lot of things in the past. That difference, I think the number went down from 100 to 60, but I'm not sure. Also, you have plenty of people who make deals with the boss they work to trade up. See, when you came to work, that was your whole life. So your life was your home and the office. You cared about a nicer office, you cared about a corner office, you cared about a lot of different space, couches in your office. You cared about a lot of things. Today, most people traded that up over those few years and said, I would like to go work by you. Can I have flexibility to only work part-time or 3 days a week in an office, some days from home? And because of that, they didn't care about the office space. So you have now that's at some level. Technology took it to a level where there are accounting firms today that have totally digital offices. I was thinking about instituting this thing even here at one point because there are a lot of brokers that go in and out. So let's talk about the phone system for a second. The phone system used to be hardwired in. So not everyone had cell phones. And even if you did have a cell phone, you don't give out the cell phone. Anybody today that's over 35 that thinks about calling someone on a cell phone thinks twice if it's a business person. I'm going to call you my cell phone. Anyone under 35, they'll go, you're like, what do you mean? You have a cell phone. Like it used to be, it's expensive every minute, so I don't know if I can talk now. Call me in my office, don't call my cell phone. It's only for personal use. It doesn't work like that anymore. There used to be a time when I provided cell phones. I reimbursed for cell phones. Today, if you don't have a cell phone, you can't come work here. So that's what technology changes. But what went with this whole change is as follows. Is that in every office today, because of technology, it's possible. It takes about 2 minutes for someone to come to your desk. I don't even give out my desk phone number anymore because I only live off my cell phone. So I have officially a desk phone. But it's very easy today to program a phone for you. So in other words, if I went into a different office of mine and I said, I'm sitting here for the day, the IT department, I don't need the IT department anymore. Someone in my office knows how. There's instructions on a piece of paper. They could go over to any phone, type in a few things into the phone, and change it. That extension was my extension. So that means that if I'm logging into an app to run a business, almost every company has some sort of system that they use, and all virtual and everything is like that. So really, what's keeping my office unique to me? I could have pictures of my family there. I could have a few things and papers on my desk. That's it. Everything else doesn't have to be me. So there are many firms now where that's part of the service. What they do is, I know my office on any given day, half the brokers are not here. They're on the road. It should be 100%. That just doesn't happen that way. So I don't really need, if I doubled my brokers in the past, I have to double my office space. I don't have to. I can really shrink in this less office space. Because what I could do is that when you come into the office, you go to the receptionist, and you put in, again with an app, like what the car rental, you could, Zipcar. They could just come and say, I plan on coming to the office today at 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock. The IT department could go into that office, set up the phone for me, log in my computer for me, and they take the box of all my stuff and they set it up. And when I leave at 2 o'clock, they just take a picture of the room and they reset it up that way. So to me, it's no different when I walk into the room. So you're laughing at this. This happens today in major accounting firms because they know accounting firms are people travel office to office, and they just need office space when they come there. So it's in a rotation. You don't care where you sit. You just care that when you're there, you need a workspace in your comfort zone. And if you had your chargers, whatever you needed, you have. It's straight across the board where this thing operates. There are companies like WeWork that does office space, where they run, and this is where the big threat is WeWork going to make it, or other places like it. We, as a larger company, our Manhattan office, a WeWork space. We made a decision, like, why would I want to take long-term rental in New York City? I'm not sure in New York City how much space I need. Mostly I need the space for a conference room. For transitional, for brokers stuck there for the day, a few meetings, a place to go. So let me play there. If next month I need more space, I just, okay, I can have an extra office. So that's why we take office space that way. So it affected the market because the people don't have to rent as many square feet for as long. There's new companies coming in with different variations of it that's affecting the office space market. So they have all these things coming together. Where's office buildings going to? Where are rents going to? Now, on the other hand, only one promising thing is that the actual landlord gets paid a higher rent sometimes in a lot of these cases. Because I pay, let's say the market is charging me rent of $20 a foot. I'm paying $25 a foot because I'm getting other services with it. So the actual space. But the question is the landlord getting it, is WeWork keep the profit and they just beat up the landlord for the cheapest rent possible. So that's office buildings. The other benefit of office, but I said apartments is 50 apartments, 40 apartments, you lose one tenant, big deal. The problem with office buildings, and the plus and the negative is that an office building, let's go before the technology changes it. An office building has, you can have some tenants that take up half a building. So it's great if there are strong tenants. In long leases, you don't have to think about it. It's a negative if when that tenant lease expires. We'll go into the costs, what it costs to maintain a new tenant. But just, that's a problem. I lose one big tenant, that's it, I'm underwater. I can't afford the difference. Some people say if I own a house, at least, what's the worst case scenario? The tenant leaves. It's $1,500 a month. The mortgage payment, $1,200. I could carry it myself. That's why some people like houses that way. But you look at an office building, what are you doing if you lose a tenant? On the other hand, also, what's another benefit to an office market? Office market changes for the better. I bought this building in a rundown neighborhood a few years ago. Now the neighborhoods really started coming back. They built trains, a new stadium went up. Things happen. Okay, the opposite effect of my Chicago story. This gets better, this neighborhood. I was collecting $20 rent. Now the market go to $60, $80, $100, $1,000. Crazy numbers. So it's possible to have that big swing for good and for bad. On apartments, you're not getting that big swing. $1,200 goes to $1,250, goes to $1,300. Get a little setback, get $100 more. That's the difference. Shopping centers. Today, I don't understand anybody that buys a shopping center. To me, it makes no sense. I live in the tech world, like I said. You're sitting here using apps, with the state of the art from any firm that's out there using big data and technology and all together at one. And people ask me, everything comes from God. People ask me, where do I see the success? What do you do in the success? At the end of the day, it's adapting to all the technologies that are out there, putting it all together. So the resources that my brokers have at their fingertips. You should all have access. If you don't have access, you can email back to Shalom after. You should all have access, which is where I think my industry is going to change. Should be a button on your app that with your login that came with it. It's called Ask QTS. And Ask QTS is the division, the banking division internally, stands for quotes and term sheets. And we basically bought crazy amounts of data. And every deal in the office here is tracked down to every submission. No firm tracks this way. But now you could decide to go into the real estate business today for the first time. And you have the same exact knowledge as my top broker. You type in any address, primarily do it in neighborhoods where we do a lot of business. You type in any address and it will tell you which bank's the most active there, how many quotes they gave recently, how many deals they closed recently. Tap on that bank, it will tell you the exact deal and quote that they gave live. So if you hit refresh, and in the time you started to refresh, someone else came in, that information is there. So that's showing the level where technology is going to, and technology is moving a business and changing an industry. So you could argue and say, how long is it going to take to get there? It took a long time. I started building this years ago. Spent millions and millions of dollars on it. People to sit down and say, a couple of years ago, Amazon, Uber, they're not going to change, but it'll still be stores. It's not true. There won't be stores. You're living in a dream to think that there's still going to be stores the same way. And the difference is, you speak on with the age gap difference. If you go to somebody that's under the age of 22, or under the age of 20, they don't know what the world means before Amazon, before Uber. Like the whole life, it's a natural way of doing business and doing things. And it's slowly creeping in to everybody older. But if you look at retail sales, you're right. Online sales is maybe 2% of the business, 3%, doubling every year. But the overall retail sales is a very small percent. But now what's changing is we live in what's called, and this is crucial to understand when you're going to want to find your niche in real estate. So to say why people go into real estate is because it's all logical. You could sit here, everything I say, walk out of here and say, based on that, I agree 100%, and come up with an idea where you think technology is this. Where is the next level going to go to that someone can make better money because people are going to care more about what or less about what? Or no, you don't agree at all, and you make a bet on it. And if you're right, you make a fortune because people are trending a certain way. So shopping centers work as follows. We're living in what's called a gig economy. What a gig economy means is that, like, think about it, you go out, and they put a magician on stage. You perform the gig. That's the word. He doesn't have a job doing magic for you the whole day. You called him up and you said, are you available from 7 to 9 to do a magic show? And he gave you a price and it came down. A singer, an entertainer. That's what they do. It's a gig. That's that world. They brought the gig the gig concept to the regular economy. So here I am. I have a car. I'm driving. I have some time. I can flip on the switch and become an Uber driver. And now I have the car anyway. I'm paying my main expense of the car is covered anyway. So I bought the car because I need it for my regular job or whatever I need a car for. But I have 3 extra hours a day. So it's not like I'm the taxi limousine that I have to cover. I make my living this. I have to cover all my expenses from it. I have to cover incremental costs. I like to make a few extra dollars a week. So if I can make that money, I become an Uber driver. When I'm available, I'll drive. When I'm not available, I won't drive. But where's the next level of Uber drivers? Is Waze is testing in LA. They're testing that every single system, similar like hitchhiking. People have people hitchhiked and they picked up strangers. Not just digital strangers. Waze is making it. If you're a Waze driver, you're not an Uber driver. You're a regular person that uses Waze. Anyone could go onto Waze and say, I'm going from here to New York. I have 15 minutes extra that I have in my time. Now forget it. You don't have to tell it you have 15 minutes extra. It knows already when your next appointment is. Like the new version of Uber syncs with your calendar. So when you're about to put in an address in, if it's the next 5 things on your appointment in your calendar, it already has it at the bottom. You just select it. So talking about Big Brother at a whole new level. So what do they put in? I'm a regular driver. As a regular driver, it could say, do you want to take someone on the road? And you could say yes. And someone on the way, somewhere will pull me off the highway, pick the person up, continue on and drop them off. And it does this for me the whole way. And that's a pure gig economy. I'm not even in the business. I'm not looking to do for 15 extra minutes. I could cover some of my gas and tolls for this trip. Why not? It's like I'm available. I'm going to work for you for the next 3 hours. It's a whole new level. This becomes competition to Uber. So you think Uber's changing the world. There's someone out there changing Uber. So, but what happens when, let's say it used to be $2 a mile when you called up a taxi. Uber opened up, it's $1 a mile before surge pricing. This place is 60 cents a mile. So if you want to make a living being a driver, then you can't make a living being a driver because you can't live at 60 cents. But if everyone is a regular, has a car anyway, becomes a driver, naturally, we're willing to take hitchhikers, it changes the whole environment. So on this gig economy, what the Uber also set up is like the biggest thing now they can break through. How do they do deliveries at a grocery store? They could do deliveries at a grocery store because every grocery store could package up the food pretty quickly. I mean, place an order. But how do they get it to you? But if they linking with an Uber type of technology, an Uber thing, they can get it done. That's why Amazon same day is the same concept. So you have that same person that probably works for Amazon, delivery same day, works for Uber, works for every other similar venture, and he just keeps they have like 3 different phones. I walk into a car, 3 different codes. Whoever buzzes first, he picks that ride up and he goes. It'll come one technology through, and we'll merge it. I'm available for any of these 3 services, and I'll put the best route for him to get it to go. But clearly what's going to happen is you don't think to go shopping. When you think you need an item, it's simpler to go into Amazon and order it than it is to write it down on a list and think to remember to go down to the store. Think about the time it takes to go to the store. So there are people who still go old school, I just want to get out. So yeah, there is going to be a level of entertainment, an entertainment value. So if you want to go to the mall for entertainment value, you have to go out, you'll do things. But if you look down in many neighborhoods, there's tons of retail. It's going to change. It can't afford those rents. Everything is going to trickle down to run into a problem. So why is someone buying shopping centers? You don't know what's going to end up at. So, and you could say, oh, this company is strong. I have a strong tenant. Who says they'll be there? You don't know what's going to change as they bypass what's going on. Like, I'd love to sit in the room where Amazon with their planning for and what they think the world's going to be like in 5 years from now. So if you have automatic driving cars and you have Amazon automatic robots that package everything up, what's changing is that the reason why you have a big grocery store. When I came into the real estate business, until a couple of years ago, the Walmarts of the world became supercenters because they could sell. Technology allowed them first. The change was that they had a better distribution network that they could stock things faster on the shelves and grow in bigger stores. And once you're going shopping, they have more items for you to go with. Technology just, so to speak, to bypass that. If you're only going to go to the store, what items do you still need to go to the store for? What are the type of last-minute items you go for? Stores are going to be able to shrink in size. So what do they do with that extra space? That's the creativity that people think about. So the one thing which people think is big, and I'm starting to invest in it, and I think that's the big place to go. And I don't know, technology replace it, thoughts on that, but is storage space. Because if everyone now could live in micro places, and they need less space here, less space there, but they have other items, where they're keeping it. So there's a lot of these storage units. Became a very, very big business because of a lot of other efficiencies that people don't have cars as much. People give up different things, but they have where they're keeping it, and that's becoming a big part. It's also if you're an Amazon seller where you're keeping it. But at a certain point, something has to shift. There's either the retail stores will become Amazon warehouses, or who knows where it's going to go to. You have the world changes, and this is the big difference. Does a Walmart go out of business, or no? Now Walmart bought an online place, so now instead Jet. So now instead no. Now it becomes stronger. They become the distribution for Jet. But how does it affect? So these are points where shopping centers, it's very tough to get a loan in a shopping center. If you have what's officially called a credit tenant and long leases, then you have a chance. Short of that, yeah, the bank will lend you money, more conservative, not 75, 80%, 65%, with a personal guarantee. Do you have enough financials? Can you weather the storm? And even if shopping centers do go down in value, so how much down will it go? 20%, 30%? It's going to go down. 40? Okay, that's what I'll lend you, 60% loan to value. So if it goes down in value, we're priced in for it. So shopping centers are very, very tough. Industrial buildings are going up in value because they're like warehouses. If you're an Amazon seller, Amazon needs warehouse space became a big thing. However, an interesting side point, again, like I said before, I'm never going to focus on the things that I could pick up the phone and get the right answer. So you don't use me for exact footage. But heights. Before technology came in, most warehouses were pretty low ceilings. Let's say 10 or 12 or 14 feet, whatever the number is. But today, with better technology that allows for building materials that can carry heavier and higher, then they could stack up more things. And therefore, they would rather have 28-foot ceilings, let's say. They don't want to have it. It's like you move everything into one room. By having robots fill things up, or having cranes that go higher in this. So some of the older buildings have problems because I wouldn't want to move into that building. It's not conducive. So these are things that people buy in those buildings, have to renovate them and fix them. These are things that are changing over time. But the key threat to this whole thing is, like I said about the office warehouse, the key threat that many of them are not focusing on is that when they have such a good handle of how much inventory they typically move on a day, and you have access to Uber drivers that way, or the whole gig economy, they're not going to have to store as much in these local places. That's why Amazon is opening up these warehouses throughout the country where they keep everything in one warehouse and then they distribute it. But they might not need to distribute it because the cost of an Uber driver or the cost of these things, the inefficiencies, and they squeeze out the inefficiencies, they could get it to someone's home and not need the same sub-warehouses. So a lot of these things are still out to figure out, but these are a lot of things that are starting to change within a marketplace. So technology, this is how technology is changing real estate. It's on the other side of it changing real estate is that if you're the owner, you know a lot more information. No one's buying a deal, an off-market deal. They didn't know something. You're coming in much more knowledgeable. So you're winning because of your creativity, and if you bet right or bet wrong. You're not winning because you got this edge that no one else knew a certain thing, and you knew it. Where the newer people coming into the business have an edge is because they're actually using every piece of technology and every piece of data point and resources. And a lot of the old school owners take the purpose. I've been around for 50 years. Trust me, that's not happening. This is not changing. This is not doing anything. And because that's where they're losing out. And you talk about even taking rents. You talk about taking now on online payments for rents and all these things. It's a new thing. I remember telling owners, I'll never take online. Okay, you can't convince them. Now the same owners taking it online because they almost have no choice. their accounting system, they're realizing they could replace a bunch of people in the office receiving the checks if there's problems and issues, and do it in an online format. So that's what's changing. How is it going to affect? The next few years, it can keep speeding the process up. Section 1, page 15. Rewards of commercial property. So it's most needed, logical, and simple to understand. Right? You need a house to live. You need places to go shopping at some level. And the whole part of it is logical. You know, like collect rent times 40 apartments. These are the expenses. It's not rocket science. A 10-unit building has 10 revenue sources under one roof. So if there's a problem with one tenant, you still have the other 9. Larger presence of investors in the commercial field. There's a lot more people that are willing to invest in commercial real estate than are in houses because they can relate to it also. They could drive by, they could ask other friends. There's a lot more people that are involved there. The profit margins are on a much larger scale. Think economies of scale. So once I'm ready buying this building, it's 40 units. Once I'm going through the hassle of getting investors, adding an extra 0, 2 zeros, it's just the zeros being added. Work is not more work. It's just bigger dollar amounts. So you can make more money. Are you making a higher percent of money? Probably not. So apartment buildings is deemed to be the safest of these investments. Because how many people move around that fast? Once you rent, you stay. Everything else, especially, it's another big change. Because of all this technology, no one cares about my address. No one mails me things. It's email. So if I move my office building today to somewhere else, big deal. Doesn't affect anybody. If you're coming to meet me tomorrow, you're going to ask, what's your address? Send me a calendar and a note. So you're not doing it based on my old information in the phone book. So I don't care if I change. Retail stores have an issue with changing. Well, when I'm going out to buy an apartment building, it's the safest because it's the safest. If I came to you, you're sitting on $1 million, and you want to invest in real estate, I'm nervous, I don't want to take a risk. Okay, the safest thing is an apartment building in a great neighborhood. You'll invest there. Come to you about a single family house. What if that tenant, if you're investing in the house, you're right, you'll make more of a return on a typical house than you'll make on an apartment building. But because not many people want to invest in that house. So that's where the difference comes in. You're making less per dollar, but there's a lot more dollars you get involved in. You can't buy $1 billion house. You can buy $1 billion real estate portfolio. Buy $1 billion building could exist. That's that. Using that as an example. So, section 1, page 16. Risks of commercial property. The biggest risk is what I said the biggest benefit is maintaining the cash flow. Are you going to mismanage the property? Now, on a commercial building, there's a lot of issues about maintaining the cash flow. The biggest issue is, I have a building. I have one vacancy. I want to rent it out. I'm getting nervous. The market's $20 a foot. I have one tenant comes to me, 15 a foot. I say to myself, I can either say, no, I'm holding out to 20. Or I say, no, I'm going in at 15. I just rent it out to somebody today. But before I know it, every time another tenant lease renews, you give him 15, and I want 15 else, I'm leaving. Before you know it, you're losing the cash flow. You neglect the building. So a banker once told me that, has his philosophy how he lends money. He only lends money. He gives you a lot of money when you buy a building, but he only gives you a 2-year loan. You're buying a building, you're fixing it up, I'll give you more than 75%. I'll give you 85%. But I'll give it to you on a heavy payment schedule. I got to get rid of me in 2 years. I asked him why. What's he like? Everyone else the opposite. Less and longer. It's very simple. A person bought a building today for $1 million. They put up $250. He's not seeing a nickel of cash flow because he's reinvesting every dollar back in the building. Plus, he probably put another $100,000 into the building. He wants to give his investors a return. This guy is going to work his tail off for the first 2 years, and then go to another bank to refinance me out. Now I know how he's going to cut corners. The tenant's going to call him up. And they're going to say, I have a leak in the roof, a leak in my apartment. He's going to come down to the apartment, and he's going to know it costs $500 to fix it. And he's going to say to the tenant, how much do you think it costs to fix? And he goes, I don't know, $300. I'll tell you what, take $400 off next month's rent and sign a waiver that I'm not responsible for this anymore. Which the tenant's not going to sign. They'll sign in a heartbeat. They save the next $400. The tenant's going to find a patch for $50 just to patch it up. So over time, the building gets neglected. The bottom line is, he has a strong rent. He'll fill up his building. Some of the bank will refinance me out, and I'm out. I don't have to worry if there's a problem later on. So I know this guy has one goal, get rid of me. My motives are aligned. So I can lend him more money, and I get a higher rate. Because the guy's willing to pay a little bit more for that extra money. He doesn't have to give investors that 8% return. He'll give me a little bit more on my return. So that's these examples, maintaining it. Before you know it, you get mismanagement. I see certain people, oh, I'm buying this property out of town. And this guy's crazy. They're running this property with 14 maintenance workers. I only need 7. I could do with 7. And maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong. Sometimes there was a lot of fat in the old system. Comes in at 7. Before you know it, the tenants aren't getting the same service. Tenants start getting frustrated. Tenants start to leave. Before you know it, that deal he was buying, thinking he's raised the rents. Before you know it, the rents are down, the building falls apart, mismanagement. That's that first risk. One big issue today, talking about technology, is very important to know in apartment buildings. So you speak to anyone in apartment buildings, forget about that. Some things I said here today, you could say, yeah, it's happening, but not as fast, and you can argue. Let me tell you the issue that's happening right now at every apartment building. The issue that's happening right now is Amazon deliveries. What do they do with them? You walk into a lobby. Can you imagine there's 40 units? And I see sometimes here, people get the deliveries they're supposed to get to the office here. They walk in sometimes, there's 42 boxes in the front before the returns go back. What happens in an apartment building? They have a cost now. Where are they storing those boxes till tenants come in? What are they doing about it? These are big issues that landlords are dealing with today. And they have to have a second person there. They can't have the bellman in the front walk to the apartment and drop it off. It's fine if there's one, they drop it off, big deal. What do they do the whole day? They have to leave it by let the UPS guy leave it by the door. These are big discussions. New buildings are being built with rooms, mail rooms. They never had mail. Mail room disappeared because everything went email. Now it's coming the opposite way and it's boxes, not just the mail. These are discussion points. So ham management of intents, the next point. Ham management of intents is the property compared to other property types. That's the big argument. And some people say, I'd rather own an office building. You know why? No one calls me. I have a tenant, very rare they call me. Own an apartment building. Calls all day. The city, if the heat, there's no heat, the tenant complains about this. He calls the city with problems, we have violent. Too labor management intensive. It's a matter of comfort. Other people say, I'd rather tenants. 40 tenants, I'd rather have that headache and not the headache of one tenant leaves them in trouble. Office building, you're right, it's easier. One tenant leaves, you're in trouble. You want to get a new tenant, the cost to get a new tenant is prohibitive. I don't want to deal with that. Everyone has risk reward if they're prepared to take. There's no right or wrong answer. It's what works for you. Cost to secure a new tenant. Built to suit, leasing commissions, etc. So when I have an office building, when I moved into the space, I didn't take it as is. I come into the space, I look around, so I have 20 workers. For me, I need one big office, a few cubicles here, I lay it out, and who's going to pay for that? That's part of the negotiation between the landlord and the tenant. At the market rent, they'll give me some allowance to fix things up. If you want to pay, if I pay a little bit more, maybe he'll include more. If I sign a longer lease, he goes, I'll tell you what, if you sign a 20-year lease instead of a 10-year lease of 10 instead of 5, I'll put more money in for you. But think about that landlord. In order to get me in, he's giving me in every commercial space several months of free rent and money to fix it up. So before he starts seeing a nickel, he had to spend a lot of money, plus commissions to get it to work. An apartment building, what's the cost? Paint, maybe. Carpet, maybe. And that's it. They move on to the next. The guy can even have the same carpet in there as every single building he owns. He gets a huge discount and he has it stored in what's it called. Or he doesn't have to store it anymore because the cost of the technology, everything there, just goes as his Home Depot, as a local storage place, and he buys it that day and he moves on. The other thing is frequency of rollover. So on one end of it, long leases is better for you because long leases allow you to know that you're locked in for that period of time. On the other hand, if you have too long of a lease, that's where inflation hurts the owner. Depending on who pays all the expenses, there's lingo for that later, we'll get into it. But think about someone has a shopping center. He has a lease with ShopRite, 20 years. ShopRite's paying $6 a foot 20 years ago. The expense is so expensive. The market is $18 for that same space. He's losing a lot of money. You're right. But he holds out till another 7 more years. 7 years in a day, we'll get $18. Can he hold out for that time? So for inflation proof, it's bad if you have long leases. It's not inflation proof, you have a problem. But short-term leases, and you have other problems. Every time there's a rollover, the tenant could leave, expenses, and so on and so forth. One vacancy can affect the other tenants in the building. This is a very, very important point. In an office building, I don't really care if there's other tenants in the building. It's probably better for me if there's less tenants in the building. Because you ever go into an office building and you wait in an elevator at 5 o'clock to come down? You can't get out. So there's less people, it's easier for me. If there's parking, more spots. When I go to a shopping center, why did I open up a brand new store? Well, with my pizza shop example. I opened up a pizza shop next to a very busy grocery store and a very busy other stores that are there. And that's my business. I only went to this location because of that foot traffic that's there. Plus, there'll be strangers who will drive straight to me, but I get the benefit of the anchor, fact that it's a grocery store that everyone in town goes to. What if that grocery store goes out of business? They leave, close down. A lot of times called coterminous. I could have, not coterminous, co-tenancy. I could have in my lease a clause that says, I'm paying this rent, but if the anchor tenant leaves, or the building in total gets more than a certain percent vacancy, I have the right to cancel my lease. That's a big issue. So in this market, it's not just you lose that one tenant. I can survive without the tenant. It's a lot of times a domino effect when it comes to retail, because that's why the retail stores came there, that cluster. You like to shop at certain malls or certain locations, because in that one location, it's not the best of this or the best of that, but it's one stop. You park your car once, and you can do all your shopping in the same place. That situation causes this issue, potentially. Multiple tenants are needed to pay the monthly mortgage. Losing a big tenant can land you in trouble. That's what we discussed on before. Section 1, page 17. More on risks. Multifamily is always perceived as less risky because people always need a place to sleep no matter how weak the economy is. With commercial properties, your rental income is fixed for the life of your lease. Yet if inflation rises, so do your expenses, a direct hit on your net income, as I was saying before. If I'm only collecting $6 a foot, but my expenses, my taxes go up, I have higher expenses to run the building. To counter this, in many, many commercial spaces, there's something called a triple net lease. A triple net lease means that when I lease the space today from the landlord, I say, landlord, I'll pay you $20 triple net. I'll pay you $20 plus whatever your expenses are. So if the expenses rise, it's on me. So the landlord says to himself, I'm willing for the next 20 years, or 10 years, or 5 years, to bottom line walk away with $20 in profit. The fact, well, whatever I put in to get to this point. Sometimes he doesn't do it that way. In the less sophisticated tenants or buildings, the landlord doesn't have this option. Tenant says, no, I'm paying you my rent, and that's it. I'm not involved in your expenses. The expenses are yours. That's a big part of the negotiation. Like office, retail, and industrial properties are subject to the conditions of the local and global economy. Right, what's going on into the world, like we talk about now, office market, retail with technology, industrial property, things change. There were times when industrial was terrible because everything was moving overseas. Before Amazon started coming back, that was a problem. Now there's even industrials moving back here. In fact, to live, pretty much you're living where you're living, and that's it. If someone lost a job and they got a new job, they don't move because of the new job. Most times just drive longer or shorter because of your new job. Now suppose you bought a property with Best Buy, GameStop as tenants. Are you secure that any of these tenants will be around to pay your rent in 5 years? That's the same type of risk we were saying before. Staples, are they the next to go? Or are they going to be able to restructure themselves? And that's an interesting thing. If you follow on when there's a lot of these news when stores are closing, the second the stores close, like every single landlord checks, is my store on that list? So am I going to lose that tenant in my location? How is it going to affect my co-tenancy and everything else in the building? One time, the sporting goods stores were a big thing. Today, most of those items you buy online. So even if they still exist, it's much smaller. The other part of it it's important is that you talk about when Staples was looking to buy Office Depot, I think. Office Depot, Staples, I don't know which one. They said it was antitrust. They didn't let it go through. So I'm saying is maybe it's antitrust for a retail store because that will dominate the market. But we're a threat to the internet. But the U.S. government didn't look at it that way. Meanwhile, now Staples is going to start closing stores now. And I don't know why someone like a place like Staples should exist. Definitely not at that size. Be a last minute run in to get the items you need. What expenses will you have if any of them go out of business? Still have to deal with the building. Other thing is leasing agent fees, advertising, construction to accommodate new tenants, etc. When I lease this building, I own a building and I lease out a tenant. In residential, 1 to 4 family apartments, when a tenant comes to me, the commission is paid typically by the tenant to the rental agent, if there is a commission. By an office space, it's paid by the landlord, so the broker. But the landlord to the broker gets paid similar to a sales broker. Because he's basically selling, the broker's commission is similar to a sales broker, where he's basically coming to the landlord and say, listen here, I'm giving you a tenant that's paying you $100,000 a year for 10 years. It's $1 million. I want 3% of that $1 million paid up front. So in that example, let's say that was 3 or 5, let's go with the 3% number. In that thing, they're getting a $30,000 commission before the tenant starts paying rent. It's not like he pays that over the next 10 years. So if you think about it, that $100,000 a year, 4 months is going to pay the leasing agent, the rental. Plus, He had to advertise till he got there. That's a small expense. The construction to accommodate the new tenants, TIs, tenant improvements. He could have agreed in order to get the new tenant that market paying for 10 years, he has to put in potentially a few dollars a foot. He could put another $50,000 in. Even if it's only $30,000. Plus, he had the guy a few months free rent. So he has a building here for the next year. He's not paying a nickel on this whole entire building. But he has 9 years afterward. So when it's all rented, it's behind him. It's a great building. But that's what I talked about before. It's real estate, an illiquid investment. You're always putting back money into the deal. Just to get a new tenant is a problem. So I met someone who once had a building. They wanted to get a big tenant. He goes, I couldn't afford to get the tenants. I understand I'll make a fortune, but I don't have enough money to lay out 2 years' worth of investments, and how am I doing it? The ongoing expenditures and repairs. It's like every other building. There's roof, repairs, and things like that. What about tenant with a 20-year lease? Market conditions may have this tenant paying far below market rent after 10 years. If inflation is kicking in and the market should go, people should be paying higher and higher every single year, then he's way below market at that point. On the other hand, you secure yourself a tenant for 20 years. So you luck out from there. So I want to go through one more point here, is that on a shopping center, most shopping centers are built around that grocery. When they buy the shopping center, the owner makes a deal with the grocery store. And the deal they make with the grocery store is very cheap rent. The rent typically just covers taxes and insurance. So at least the owner says, listen, I buy this property, you cover for my main expense that I have. Now I know that everything else is pure profit above that. So the grocery store wins, because the grocery store is paying a very, very low rent. And the owner wins that he's covered. So the inline space, all those other small stores throughout, that's really where the profit is for the owner. The grocery store signs a 25-year lease, a 30-year lease sometimes for that spot. But to counter back, to motivate the landlord to bring in very good tenants. Because if I'm the grocery store, I don't want a bunch of new stores on the side that I want to pay over market. Like if I opened up a new store tomorrow and I felt the best location for it was next to the local grocery store, and the market to rent the store there's $5,000 a month, I spend $6,000 because my chance of survival is all that foot traffic. I'll overpay. But if I'm the landlord, I'll take it. If I think that this store will be surviving, I put money in escrow with a guarantee, I'll take that spot. But if I'm the grocery store, I don't want to take in that spot because I'd rather a store like Starbucks that independently someone's going to pull up to get the Starbucks, and once they're there, I'll run to the grocery store. But Starbucks takes advantage the other way. They pay a low rent for foot traffic. So to keep everything balanced at some level is that there's something called percentage rents. That in many grocery stores, aside from the rent that they're paying, every dollar above a certain number of gross rent a year, $10 million a year in that location, they will pay the landlord a certain percent of it. So the landlord is motivated to make this the number one shopping center in the market that everyone comes here for shopping and puts it together. I'm actually thinking now, I'm sure the next level of legal thing is what happens where all these technologies like Instacart that you could order online, they go to the grocery store and they pick it up and they deliver for you. What happens? Where's the income? Where's the percentage rent? Is that an Instacart and that store gets it or not? How does that work? I'm sure it's the next level of Wilson there. So we're going to stop on this. There's questions here. You can always feel free to email people with questions. Just to tell it to you quickly, myself, my partners, Abraham Bergman, Mark Belsky, and Yitzi Hallen run the equity division within the company. Phil Crispin runs healthcare. And Moshe Feiner and Aaron Kleinman run the banking department, QTS, quotes and term sheets. So that button on your app, told me before, who's running the department, the live people that are actually tracking everything and talking to the banks and updating that data. That's them that's working it from there. So any questions throughout the course, feel free to call them, and we'll continue onto the second section tomorrow. Thank you.